Are you interested in an MBA that has the goal of preparing you to lead in an ever-changing world? Are you considering 1-2-year options? Does being in New York City with all that it offers appeal to you? Then today's episode is for you. The new executive director for MBA Admissions at NYU Stern is our guest.
Welcome to Admissions Straight Talk, the podcast dedicated to graduate admissions and helping you approach the application process thoughtfully and successfully. Your host is Accepted's founder and world-renowned admissions guru, Linda Abraham. At Accepted, our mission is to get you to that unforgettable moment when you read your acceptance email and shout, "Yes, I'm in!" Confident you'll be attending the perfect program to help you launch the career of your dreams.
Welcome to the 525th episode of Admissions Straight Talk. Thanks for joining me. Are you ready to apply to your dream MBA programs? Are you competitive at your target schools? Accepted's MBA admissions quiz can give you a quick reality check. Just go to accepted.com/MBA quiz, complete the quiz, and you'll not only get an assessment, but tips on how to actually improve your profile and qualifications. And it's all free. Again, use the calculator at accepted.com/MBA quiz to obtain your complimentary assessment. It gives me great pleasure to have for the first time on Admissions Straight Talk, Lindsay Lloyd, Executive Director for MBA Admissions at NYU Stern. Lindsay leads the recruiting and admissions efforts for Stern's full-time MBA programs, including the 2-year full-time MBA, the focused 1-year MBAs, which are the Andre Koo Technology and Entrepreneurship MBA, and the Fashion and Luxury MBA. Lindsay has a BA in economics from Washington State University and an MBA from Chicago Booth. Before joining NYU Stern, she had a 13-year career at American Express, where she ultimately became the Vice President of Strategic Engagement Global Commercial Services. She joined NYU Stern in January 2023. I think I can still congratulate you on your new role and position. And so, Lizzie, congratulations and welcome to Admissions Straight Talk.
Thanks, Linda. Great to be here.
Wonderful. Now, let's start with a really basic question. Can you provide an overview of NYU Stern's full-time 2-year MBA program?
Thanks. So NYU's 2-year program full-time, it's the classic program that you think of when you hear MBA. It is a graduate management education that delivers on both breadth and depth. Year one, you're going to jump in with launch orientation and then focus on the core requirements, both the required and some picks from our menu, then have a summer internship, followed by your second year, where that's when you really jump into electives and your specializations. There's kind of 3 things that I'd highlight that make Stern special. Firstly, being access. And really, we are located in the heart of New York City. And we fully take advantage of that. We are so connected across businesses and industries, from fintech to fashion, from media to marketing, you name it. We've got Stern alumni there. And the beauty is they're just a subway ride away. So we really are in the heart of the city and take advantage of it. The next thing that I'd highlight is Stern Solutions. So this is our experiential learning opportunities for students, where they're really jumping in and participating on live business challenges in the moment. This is something that Stern launched in the early aughts. So this is, 2 decades worth of experience and expansion and development. And lastly, I think Stern MBAs really have the opportunity to customize their experience. So I mentioned specializations earlier. You can pick 3 from over 20. There are more than 200 electives to choose from. And there's opportunities to study abroad, whether that's for a semester or for 1 to 2 weeks on a doing business in DBI International Intensive.
Wow, sounds pretty good. And we haven't even gone to change studio, which we're going to get to in a minute. And just to go back to the overview idea, the second year is entirely elective, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Right. Okay. And since it's their 5-year anniversary and there's increasing interest in 1-year MBA programs, can you also provide an overview of the 2 focused 1-year MBA programs, the Tech MBA and the Luxury and Fashion MBA program?
Right. Quite a milestone for those programs.
Yes.
They are fast, immersive, and indeed very focused. They run May to May, and it's a lockstep 52 credit curriculum. It includes a general business core, a specialized industry core, and then Stern Solutions experiential learning projects that are really geared towards either tech or fashion and luxury. Starting with the tech program, it's STEM designated. There's a West Coast immersion experience, and there's a tech advisory board that connects students with prominent professionals and firms in industry. A couple of highlights here. So we've seen 120% growth in applications for the tech program since its inception. Another sort of like awesome stat is that most cohorts in this program now are at or near gender parity. And our 2022 class had 100% employment 3 months post-graduation. So really awesome results happening in the tech program. Similarly, the fashion and luxury program also has an immersion experience. They go to Europe, and past trips have included stops at places like Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Prada. This program also has a council of industry leaders that connect students, because we know that mentorship and networking is really crucial, particularly in these industries. This program has a real small, deeply connected cohort. They all know, love each other, take care of each other, small group, and it's a really special thing to see. Their employment rates have also been improving, and in 2022, that class hit 94% employment post-graduation, 3 months post-graduation. So
Wow.
a high watermark there as well.
Yeah, especially in that industry.
Mhm.
That is fantastic. And what is if I recall, it was very high, the employment rate for the 2-year MBA.
98%.
That's what I thought. It was 97,
Yes,
98.
yeah,
It was also
97,
really
98.
impressive number, right?
Immediately versus 3 months, I'm not sure, but it's very, very high.
Right. And I believe NYU had some other really notable stats lately in the last academic year. The last entering class had the highest GMAT ever, and the last graduating class had the highest average total compensation ever, correct?
That is correct.
To what do you attribute that?
So first, all credit goes to my predecessor in admissions, Lisa
Okay.
Rios, for
Okay.
recruiting a stellar class that is strong, not just on GMAT, but across all dimensions. As part of our holistic evaluation process, we're test agnostic. So we accept the GMAT, GRE, EA, MCAT, LSAT, DAT, and we also offer a test waiver process. So I think a contributing factor to this high average GMAT is that candidates are figuring out which test works best for them and putting that best foot forward, which I think is a great strategy. We want candidates to submit their strongest application. On the graduate compensation front, I got to tip my hat to my fellow Amex alum and the head of career development at Stern, Brian Ruggiero, for just incredible placement outcomes amidst the challenges of the pandemic. As I've onboarded at Stern, it's clear that that team on the employer relation fronts is incredibly strong, manages and builds great relationships there. And then on the career coaching front, they are incredible and do such a great job of preparing Sternies for all things recruiting. I've also been really impressed with the student-led industry groups and the Stern Pay It Forward ethos, kind of part of that IQ, EQ vibe we got going. The second years do so much to help the first years prepare for networking, case interviews, like the whole thing. And it's really incredible to see it in action.
That's great. Okay. Can you touch on Change Studio? I was reading about it. I think it had just started when I last interviewed Lisa, and now it's obviously better established. And I was reading about it online. What is it, and how do students take advantage of it? It's a little bit hard to get your hands around it, I think.
Change is really the one constant in life. And as such, it's Stern's mission to prepare our students to embrace change, to dare it, dream it, drive it, as the tagline says. And this mission is really foundational. It's built into all aspects of the Stern program, from launch to core and on through to electives. Change Studio is really an umbrella concept that encapsulates the many different co-curricular opportunities that Sternies can take advantage of during their time here, whether that's Stern Solutions, opportunities through the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, you name it. And these things, in the spirit of change, are constantly evolving based on student demand and market interest.
Okay. But I mean, is it a class? Is it an ethos? Is it opportunity? Is it experiential learning? Again, I'm
It's all
still
of those
trying to wrap
things.
my mind about it.
I would say it's not one particular course or one particular prescriptive set of courses, but it's a buffet of opportunities that are available for Sternies to choose from.
Okay. Any examples you can give me?
So I would say launch would be one of those. I would say the consulting labs. I would say
Entrepreneurship.
Endless Frontier Labs and some of the entrepreneurship opportunities. I would say Leadership Accelerator. There's a whole host to choose from. And like I said, this is something that new programs are evolving all the time.
Okay, great. Where are Stern MBAs finding jobs in terms of geography and industry function? All three.
All three. So I'll take those from the top. Geography.
Okay.
It should come as no surprise, given our location, that we have very strong placement in New York City and the Northeast. But we have candidates that are placed coast to coast in the US and also beyond to the rest of the world, Europe, Asia, and Middle East. Industry-wise, got about a third that go into consulting and a third that go into kind of broader, diversified financial services, and then good chunks into tech, healthcare, entertainment, sports and media, CPG, and real estate. Functionally, we've kind of already accounted for that third going to consulting. So same story there.
Yeah.
A third going into finance functional roles and accounting type functional roles, and then the rest product management and marketing, general management, data analytics, operations. Really, if people are interested in the details, I strongly recommend you go to our website and the employment reports. We post them for both the full-time 2-year program and the 2 1-year focus programs.
All right. And what does Stern offer wannabe entrepreneurs? I know you mentioned Frontier Labs. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, Stern is a great place for current entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. We've got some excellent elective coursework to choose from, applications in entrepreneurial finance, marketing for entrepreneurs, managing growing companies, and a host more. Endless Frontier Labs specifically is NYU Stern's hub for massively scalable tech and life science startups from around the world. These aren't necessarily Stern startups. They don't have to be associated with Stern. That program runs from October through May, and Stern MBA students have the opportunity to get involved through a companion course that they take, then allows them to work closely with the EFL founders on business development support. And some actually have placed into full-time jobs in those companies post-graduation.
Right.
Other things that I'd highlight, the Berkeley Center offers startup advising to students and also runs the annual Entrepreneurs Challenge that has competitions for seed funding. We also have a program called Sternworks. It's a fund that supports students who are seeking internships with startups, VCs, and nonprofits. And then finally, I'll highlight that we have student-led groups like the Entrepreneurship and Startup Association.
Great. Sounds like a lot of opportunity.
Tons. And New York City is a great place to be an entrepreneur.
There's quite an ecosystem there. Before I turn to admissions, what don't people know about NYU Stern that you would like them to know? What's a common myth you'd like to bust or something that people just don't know?
Yeah, it came up recently at preview weekend for our next admitted class. But I think upon first glance, it's really easy to write off IQ plus EQ as marketing pablum, but I'm telling you, it's the real deal. While I'm new to Stern, I'm not new to working with Sternies. During my tenure at American Express, I worked with and for many Stern graduates, both Amex colleagues of mine and also as folks I was sitting across the table from, Sternies that worked at partners of Amex's like Delta Airlines. All of the Sternies I worked with were incredibly smart when it came to numbers and business strategy, and also very people smart. They were generally very kind and humble leaders. They cared deeply about leveling up everyone around them and very much we're strongly committed to doing the right thing by people, whether that was colleagues or customers. And that was one of the many reasons that I was really excited to come work at Stern.
Okay, great. That was a wonderful answer. Let's turn to admissions. Do you see any changes coming to NYU Stern's application requirements in the upcoming cycle? Let's break it down a little bit. You already mentioned that Stern will accept whatever test you feel best represents you, and you also offer waivers. Do you plan to change the test policy, allowing all? No. What
No
about
changes
waivers?
being made on that front.
No changes. What about the waiver option? You're going to keep it. Okay.
Going to keep it.
And what about changes to the essays?
We changed those not that long ago. And as I've onboarded and talked to the team and gotten familiar with the reading process and that kind of thing, like, we really like our questions. And the sense is it really helps you understand and get to know an applicant. And they lend themselves well to differentiating between an okay application, a good application, and a great application. So we like our essay questions.
Okay, great. They're different. They're good. It's nice when schools have some signature questions that also reflects the culture.
Exactly.
Do you see ChatGPT as a problem in the application process, specifically regarding the essays? Now, I realize yours are a little different because you also have a visual component, at least to one. But how do you view that?
So ChatGPT is interesting.
Yes.
Amongst my fellow sort of Stern grad program administrators, the dean of students, who's a Stern alum, Connor Grennan, has become kind of our Obi-Wan Kenobi of ChatGPT.
Okay.
He's a really fun follow on LinkedIn right now. I highly recommend. He's always sharing interesting use cases. This functionality is so new and it's so rapidly changing, like, every day. I will say I plugged in our change essay prompt to ChatGPT to see what it produced. My conclusion is I don't think it's a good strategy for an applicant looking to put their best forward to outsource their application essays to ChatGPT. It can create a passable but very generic essay without much in the way of personality. And I think a winning essay is one that's infused with personality and shows what you uniquely bring to the table. The one sort of analogy that I've heard kicked around is that ChatGPT is to writing what a calculator is to math. And so I think kind of in that vein, maybe it's a bit like, I would compare it to bouncing your essays off a friend or maybe an admissions consultant for feedback, or using spell check or Grammarly to make sure that you're not missing any errors, right? Like, that's all fine to use those tools, but you still got to do the heavy lifting at the end of the day and do the self-reflection, do the research, and do the thoughtful composition if you want your essays to be yours.
Right. Yeah. I was kind of thinking about a homemade baked product versus a store-bought one.
Yeah. Right. It's not going to taste the same.
Not the same. Yeah. Not the same.
But I have no interest in trying to detect who has used it or not. Right. And we'll see. I mean, there's also AI that is for image generation. So if someone, creates something in Midjourney and includes it in their Pick 6, that could be interesting.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know what prompt you used.
Right. But I also tried it out once. And again, I got something that was very, very generic and shallow. Apparently, maybe ChatGPT has its own style and it'll be in its own way detectable, not necessarily by a machine, but by human beings. Conversely, what makes an applicant in an application come alive for you?
Yeah, I think an application really shines when every piece of it comes together to tell a cohesive narrative. And, it shows us kind of three main things. Firstly, the applicant, has done deep reflection on their values, on what they're good at, and what they maybe have room for improvement. Secondly, they've really researched their intended career path, and they can connect the dots from where they've been to what they hope to experience at Stern and where they hope to be after Stern. And then lastly, shows us how are you going to contribute and be a part of the Stern community, right? When we're crafting this class, it's a mosaic. We want to make sure that Stern pay it forward ethos is really running throughout. So we're curious as to what your contribution is going to be.
What stone are you going to be in that mosaic?
Exactly.
Right. I remember talking to an NYU Stern admissions officer. I don't remember her name, but it was probably at least 20 years ago, and she used the same metaphor.
I guess that's maybe a little reinforcement that I'm in the right place.
Exactly. I don't remember her name though. What about the EQ endorsement? How is that different from a letter of recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar, but I think it adds a layer. It adds another dimension. It's not just the task that you've completed and the results that you've delivered at work, but this gets into the how you did those things. Are you leading with empathy? Are you communicating thoughtfully? Interpersonal skills are just as important as intellectual skills. And we're looking for exceptional individuals that are self-aware, that are naturally curious, and that are always working to improve themselves. And I think the EQ endorsement gives us a window into that.
Great. What can an interviewee to NYU Stern expect during the interview?
Yeah, I think one of the things of the pandemic allowed us to kind of innovate on how we interview. All of our interviews are 30 minutes in length, conducted via Zoom with members of the admissions staff. So it's not an alumna, not a current student. It's a member of my staff. So we are delivering, and we like this because it delivers a consistent, equitable candidate experience, and on the flip side, we get consistent and equitable interview reports from it. In terms of expectations, the interview is not blind. The person who's interviewing you is a staff member, will have reviewed your application and your resume. So it's really going to be a 30-minute conversation to get to know you better, get a sense of your communication style, understand how a Stern MBA fits into your career journey at this time. And likewise, it's an opportunity for you to get to know Stern better, that you should take advantage of and ask questions and help us give you more insight into Stern as a possible avenue for you.
So you would definitely recommend that an applicant invited to interview prepare some questions.
Absolutely.
And I assume that those
Absolutely.
questions should not be answered on the second page of the website.
Ideally, they peel back the onion a bit further than that. Yes,
I would hope so. All right. What suggestions would you have for reapplicants to Stern? I mean, this is going to air, I believe we plan it for later in May.
Okay.
Late May. It's that time of year where people might be reapplying, and it's not the same. So
yeah, they're seeing how the cards shook out and developing their next steps. So
right.
When I'm thinking about someone who's replying to Stern, and I'm thinking, even if I was in their shoes, like I'd be most curious to know, like, what did they learn about themselves through that application process that didn't result in what they were hoping for. I think it's also beneficial to take a real critical look at your last application. Where are areas that you felt were not as strong as they could have been? How can you tell a stronger story this time around? What's changed since you last applied?
Okay,
those are the questions that I would be asking.
And how can you address those weaknesses?
Exactly.
Right. Every so often we are asked, I know it was my test score, or I know I didn't have enough experience, but my essays are really good. Can I just resubmit the same essays? How would you respond to that?
I mean, you can.
Of course.
I don't know that that's the best course of action. Like, I think you'd probably have something different to say with another year's worth of experience. So you would be doing yourself a disservice by just submitting the same application essays. I would really think about like what new has changed and how could you reflect that?
Yeah. That's
what
I typically say.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely an option, but I was just having this discussion with somebody and I said, listen, he says, well, I took some classes, I got some A's, that's really what's changed. And my essays were really, really good. And I said, there are very few people who can't improve their writing a year later when they look back at it, number one. Number two, if you want to telegraph that the only thing you've done the last year is take a few classes and earn A's in them, then go ahead. But maybe you want to show that you've done other things too, or grown in other ways. And in the end, he agreed to take critical eye to his essays, but it took some persuasion. And I don't think part of what a reapplicant should do is, okay, so they analyzed the weakness. They saw that it was grades or test score, or whatever weakness was, and they addressed it, but they don't want to be otherwise stagnant. They don't want to come across as stagnant.
Right.
Anyways,
You want to come to a place where we're all about change, right?
exactly.
Like what has
You're all
changed
about
in the
change.
last
So
12
don't come
months?
across as stagnant.
Right. What have you
Anyway,
learned? Yeah.
yeah, that was just on my mind because I just had this conversation. And like I said, it took quite a bit of pushing. What about first-time applicants? Okay, so they haven't been rejected previously. They haven't applied previously. How can applicants prepare to apply successfully to NYU Stern?
I'm sure like in that moment, and I've been there myself many moons ago, but it can be very overwhelming. Firstly, I'd say don't fuss too much about meeting any one particular deadline versus another. We don't want you to rush an application. We want to see your application when you're ready to submit the best application you can submit. I would, we were talking about test options earlier, do some research, give it some prep, and give it a go as soon as you can. I think you'd want to allow yourself time to see how that score came back, retest or try another test if you feel like it wasn't reflective of your capabilities. And then I will also say, please don't be put off by the high average scores. Keep in mind that averages are not minimums. Take a look at our class profile. We publish our 80 and 100% ranges. And just remember that we evaluate applications holistically. The test score is only one data point amongst the bigger picture of you that is the application.
And when we're talking about tips and the tests, who should apply for a waiver?
I'd say if you feel that the test really isn't reflective or you're not in a space where you can take a certain test, we're looking for folks who have past experience in quantitative courses, right? You've got transcripts supporting that, you will be able to come in and hit the ground running and do well in statistics and financial accounting in that first semester at school. So looking for either transcript evidence or folks who have had significant work experience that's quantitatively supported. Maybe you have your CPA or your CFA, right? These are all other proof points that you're going to do well. But I strongly encourage you to take a test and submit a score because it is a helpful data point. But those are the type of things that we'd be evaluating when assessing for granting a waiver.
Okay, great. What question would you have liked to answer that I didn't ask?
Ooh, so the one cool thing, I think I mentioned it earlier as part of the Change Studio, but I really want to highlight it, is Leadership Accelerator, because it is the coolest thing that I've learned about.
Go for it. That's a great question. What's the coolest thing I didn't ask about?
Yeah. So, this is taking case method learning to a whole other level. They have taken it off the paper, and Leadership Accelerator is an opportunity for students to spend a full day living in a case. We bring in professional actors that play business roles that are, live in real time, throwing twists and turns at the students that they're responding to in real time. And it's an amazing opportunity for practical application of theory and gives them an opportunity to learn leadership agility and, reacting to these things in real time.
What's the title?
Leadership Accelerator. Leadership Accelerator. Professor Nate Pettit is the director of the Leadership Accelerator. He developed this live case method along with Stern colleague Hannah Levinson. So it's super cool. And I just one sort of tangential plug for Nate Pettit. This is a podcast, so I assume that people listening are, like podcasts as a format for consuming content. Nate is also the faculty advisor for Stern Chats, and Stern Chats is the podcast that is entirely MBA student run, and it's a great opportunity to hear about Stern from Sternies.
Okay, great. Thank you for that plug, and thank you for explaining it. It sounds really cool.
It's really cool.
So they basically they show up and they're given a situation, and actors act parts, and they
the students are in roles as part of you're in a boardroom and you're debating a strategy, and then a crisis comes in, and how do you respond to these things? So it's picture reading an HBS case, but then like living it in real time, right? How
That
the
does sound
cases
really
always
cool.
sort of lay out the
Yeah,
scenario. Yeah.
that sounds really cool. Lindsay, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I've enjoyed chatting with you about NYU Stern's 3 full-time MBA programs. Can you provide a URL for our listeners?
Yeah, everything you can find is at stern.nyu.edu. And there's pages for the full-time 2-year program that we talked about and for the 1-year focus programs with
Great.
lots of great information.
Thank you again. Listener, you'll find links in the show notes at accepted.com/525 to NYU Stern's MBA options, as well as to other resources and related interviews. Quick reminder, don't miss the MBA admissions quiz. Find out if you are really ready to apply and competitive at your target schools. You can take the quiz at accepted.com/MBA quiz. Listener, thank you too for tuning in to this, our 525th episode. If you found this show helpful, subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon, or whatever podcatcher you prefer. You can find subscribe links at accepted.com/525. This is Admission Straight Talk, produced by Accepted, and I am your host, Linda Abraham. I'll talk to you again next week.